This is Driving Emotion Type S, a very, very old PS2 game from Square. And I know how much you don't want to hear this song again, so let's cut to something else.
This could get a little hairy.
Firstly, let's just pick a track and have a race, and you'll see the problems from there. Now we wait. No, there is nothing wrong with your ears. This loading screen is purring at you. Ah, life. One car. We have to load all 6. And that could take a while. Of course, by the time the game is loaded, you will have grown a beard and not want to play it anymore. Alright, that's all 6. But it's still not done. I thought it would be slow, but not the Wrath of Cortex slow. And all of a sudden, after an entire minute of loading, the game pops out of nowhere. Here's the first problem, and obviously the largest, other than the loading times. The main problem is the controls. Whoa. They are astonishingly bad. And thankfully retrying doesn't take as long as loading a full race, but it is still pretty slow. And you'll be doing this a lot. Right, let's give this a second try. Now, I must note, the interior view is quite detailed and nice, though the arms of the driver seem quite funky in the way they move. But apart from that, you know, it's good. Good little dials in there. But when the controls are so horrifically unresponsive and just so unwieldy, like they are in this game, you really don't want to be using cockpit view. It's just too much hassle. You're already spending enough time just trying to keep the bloody car from snaking out of control. And that's all it does. You cannot drive this car straight. It just doesn't happen. Right? One tap left, either nothing happens, or you go spinning wildly out of control. And the same thing happens if you flick it to the right. You can't make little adjustments. Any little flick will send your car either spiraling out of control or do nothing at all, both of which are not desired in a racing game. My God! Some things I do like about this game, however. Those little wispy clouds we drove through and the lens flare. That's quite nice, especially considering this game came out launch month for the PS2 in Japan. And apparently that version was nowhere near as polished as this, which is unspeakable, really. Apparently it had even worse controls, and the wheels on the cars wouldn't center. If you ever turned right, you'd have to push the stick left again to make your wheels point forward. Whoa, man, that's crazy. Plus it had not as nice graphics. Then again, this doesn't have particularly nice graphics either. You might notice that distinct shimmering and jaggedness reminiscent of early PS2 titles. Now, of course, I lost. This happens almost always in this game, for anyone, regardless of your skill at racing games. It's just so... Okay, this is some city track, called some generic name like City Highway. It looks quite nice. But then sometimes something so insane happens like that. Yeah. It won't even let me continue. It pauses the game by itself when you fall off the map and says retry or quit. There is no other way about it. Hey, this one's familiar for anyone who's played a Gran Turismo game after the third one. It's Tsukuba Circuit in Japan. Yes, 3 of the tracks in this game are real, if you can count the short version of Suzuka Circuit and the full version of Suzuka Circuit as 2 separate circuits. Yeah, I said circuit too many times, didn't I? And yeah, so you've got some track called Province, the one I showed first, some nighttime track, Tsukuba Circuit, and both the short and long versions of Suzuka Circuit. Though I try and avoid Suzuka because, as we all know, Suzuka is a very, very complex and technical track. Even driving around it in GT is a challenge. So something with such sloppy, awful controls as this, well, that would just be a nightmare. Suzuka is also better suited to motorbikes as well. It's way too narrow for this game. And before I talk about anything else, the music. Yeah. It speaks for itself, really. Moving on. This track is very, very wide, which suits this game well. Yes, you can feel free to snake around it, and it doesn't really matter because you're not going to hit a wall, I'm sure. You can even pull off some crazy drifts if that's your thing. Or that will happen. I made a really bad choice of transitions, haven't I? The first few were squares, because it was made by Square. Get it? Yeah, that was pretty terrible. Now, I may have been giving the illusion that winning is impossible. No, far from it. Sometimes, when the AI are just really dumb, and they are, these AI are very slow, and if you can handle your car, and that's the main challenge of this game, you can beat them. But it will take a lot of practice and luck. I also forgot to mention that each race you win nets you a new car. And there are even, you can get a Ferrari 360 in this game. Or even the Toyota GT1 race car. But you've got no chance of doing that because the game's controls are so awful, and why would you pursue such a horrible goal? It's possible, but you really wouldn't want to sit through this game and unlock them all. It's quite poor. Now, it's time for the final verdict. It is a very early PS2 game, so it can be forgiven for its technical shortcomings. But with so many other great PS2 racing games out there, there isn't really much reason to play this anymore. I'm not saying it's the worst racing game in the world. It does have some redeeming qualities, like those clouds and that. Like, this replay mode is actually pretty good. But I must say that the controls are so absolutely terrible that I cannot recommend this game to anyone, except for those who want to buy it just to see how bad the controls are. If you see this game selling for pocket change, yeah, go ahead and buy it. That's why I bought it. The name sounded appealing and it was, I don't know, $3, $4.